Welcome back, Kerbal Knots. Today we're going to work on this couple of contracts. We're going to try to orbit Kerbin, and we're going to try to do this test of the heat shield contract that we forgot about last time. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our rocket here. Okay, let's put the heat shield on. Thermal, here we go. Yeah, it's a tiny heat shield, that's okay. So we got our parachute. Actually, science, we're gonna just stick a thermometer on. Yeah, put 2 goos on, because that will keep the spacecraft a little bit more balanced. Now, in reality, you'd never have something sticking out like this for a real spacecraft, but this is Kerbal Space Program. You can loosen the requirements a little bit. Okay. We don't need an antenna. We got that. Let's put our parachute on. Let's put our coupling. Here we go. A little bit of a gap. That'll be fine. Okay, so we have a little bit bigger fuel tanks than we did last time. I was going to install a program called Kerbal Engineering, a mod. Only mod that I'll use here. I'll try to remember to do that for next time. That helps to show some of the numbers. That really makes this game a lot easier to play and a lot more interesting. But that's okay. So there's 2 choices of engines. There's the swivel engine, works a little bit better in vacuum. It has a 320 ISP versus this one that has a 310. And the swivel also allows you to change direction. So we're going to use that for our final stage. Now eventually we'll get a smaller engine, but we don't have the science for that yet. Okay, so we're going to put a bunch of fuel tanks on here. Gonna put some fins. Well, let's just go with these ones. And then we need at least 3. 3 will give us full direction. And then we're gonna use this engine as a little bit better in the atmosphere. It doesn't swivel, so this top engine here can gimbal, it can point the direction of the thrust, and the bottom engine can't. Non-gimbling engines are a lot simpler, they're a lot cheaper, and they are used in some real missions, but they're not as useful for the final stages when you're in space. I don't think we have enough fuel. Let's try to put 1 more of these. Okay, let's give this a shot. So if this takes off, then we have a decent chance of making it to orbit. So let's go ahead and put the thrust up to the top, and let's check our staging. That looks good. Okay. Learned our lessons from last time. Now in reality, you'd never have the engine bell sitting directly on the ground. That would be so bad for so many reasons. We're going to turn on flight stabilization, which will allow us to have a little bit more control, and we're going to start what's called a gravity turn. And you'll see this with real missions. You actually, especially the really low cost missions, they'll just they'll be angled off at maybe a 7-degree angle from the very beginning of the launch, and then they'll continue on that way through the rest of the launch. and it will take them straight into orbit. The spacecraft will naturally bend down, and it works out really well. So it seems like we're pointing in the wrong direction. It's a pity. These fins that we have, they're keeping us pointed in the direction of movement, but they're not really giving us a lot of control, or any control for that matter. That's okay. So we're losing a little bit of efficiency because we're not taking the best trajectory into space, but that's okay. So, here, we'll start pointing here at a 90-degree angle. There we go, we're doing good. And Jebediah here is happy. So we'll do, let's see here. Let's log a temperature. See a little bit of heating effects. That's not really much of an issue. And you can actually see some of this in some of the real videos that are coming out. So we're going to start turning a little bit to try to accelerate our speed. Actually, we're getting pretty close to orbital velocity here. Let's check our map. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. We are going to achieve orbit. Yay! Jebediah there is so stoic. He's like totally calm and not even worried about anything at all. Hey, we're in space. Okay, so let's just fast forward here a little bit. Now, a real mission would never do a trajectory like this. They're the easiest to do in Kerbal Space Program, but when you have the money to do a proper simulation and you know exactly the trajectory you're going, there are better ways. So let's just keep firing our engines here a little bit. So we're firing at the apogee because that will bring our perigee, the bottom point of the orbit, at the most effective way. So you see our perigee has risen up and we are officially in orbit, guys. Yay! So let's go ahead and absorb some mystery goo. And oh, that's right, we can only have one measurement. Well, we're going to get the measurement from space because that's better. We're going to do a crew report. And that'll do. So we can't do an EVA right now because we haven't properly trained our astronauts. That's actually a real thing. So, you know, we could go orbit around, and so basically what's happening is we're moving so fast that the curvature of the planet is going down quicker. Essentially, we're still falling, but we're moving so fast that the planet has curved that allows us to keep going, and so this is called orbital velocity. So if we slow down just a tiny bit, let's go ahead and do it. Just a little bit. Then we're dipping into the upper parts of the atmosphere already. So we're no longer truly in orbit, although we're still gonna continue around Kerbin here. Another thing in reality, space is really dark. I know this looks dark in YouTube, but true night is much deeper than that. So we're gonna do physics warp here. And we're just gonna spin a little bit. It'll be fine. We have a little bit of rocket fuel left. What we're doing now is something that's kind of an aerobraking thing. We're wanting to slow down a little bit, but not do a full re-entry. This is actually a realistic thing as well. For most Mars missions, getting into an orbit, and we'll see this when we go to another planet. Getting into a really elliptical orbit is pretty easy. Getting into a orbit where you're low around the planet that when you're coming to visit another planet is much more difficult. But what you can do is have one of these orbits, you can dip into the atmosphere, and it will slow you down just a little bit, principally on your far side. So you see our apogee is going down here. Our perigee is going down a little bit, but the apogee is going down much, much faster. The orbit tends to affect the opposite part of where you are more than the current part. So you remember we were at about 170 kilometers before, and now we've actually dipped down quite a bit. So the reason why we're doing this is because of this test. I don't know if we're going to be able to achieve this or not, but to test the heat shield, it wants us to be in the high part of the atmosphere and going well below orbital velocity. Are we back in space yet? Not yet. Wow. So somehow we've got to be well below orbital velocity and still in the upper parts of the atmosphere. I don't know how we're going to achieve that, but we'll figure out a way. We don't want to do that. Okay, so now we're back in space, so we can do the non-physics time warp. And so basically the computer can model physics a lot quicker when it's in space because you're not worrying about the atmosphere. So, because the atmospheric the calculations are a lot more complex, and really high up in the atmosphere it doesn't make much of a difference, but when you get to be lower, you typically don't want to do the physics time warp because it can actually cause some serious issues. There's something called RTK RT integration. Basically, you're doing a simulation at each step along the way, and realistic simulations, actual rockets, they work like that. They do it one step along the way, and you have to have the time step small enough because if you change too much, then it can cause all kinds of crazy experiments. And so, long story short, being in the atmosphere with all of the extra physics calculations can cause you some real issues. But okay, we're just spinning around here, and let's actually just spin around a little bit faster. It'll be fine. So our apoasis here is actually going to dip down below the orbital velocity. We might actually re-enter now. I don't really want to re-enter yet. So we're going to use what's left of our rocket to try to... And that was too much power. Gosh, I can't get this right. Maybe we'll be in the upper part, though. So we're kind of skimming through the atmosphere here. This is actually what Apollo 13 was worried about. They were worried that when we were... that the mission would go too narrowly through the atmosphere and it would actually not slow down enough, and it would keep going back into space, something very similar to like what we're going to do right now. And if they had missed the Earth, they were moving so fast, it would have taken them about 5 weeks to come again to go through the Earth, in which case the astronauts would have been long, long dead. They had a very narrow window of opportunity to be safe. Yeah, we totally screwed that one up, but that's okay. We're not going to test this heat shield mission this time. Those poor engineers want to test their heat shield. They're just going to have to wait. Pity. So we're definitely re-entering this time. There's no real reason for us to hold on to the rocket body, so let's drop out of time warp. We're going to let our rocket body go. Real space missions will plan very carefully how they'll do that, so there's no chance that you're accidentally going to run into it. We're not that real, though. And let's go ahead and... there we go, that's better. So we're going to point the back end of this so that it's facing the direction we're moving, because most of the heat will come in the direction of moving. And this shape of a capsule is actually naturally stable here. That's why they use this particular capsule state. Even though if we take the stabilization off, I'm not even touching anything, it will naturally be stable. Less stable with these goo canisters on like we have, but it'll still be pretty stable. So you can see our rocket debris, rocket body is about 2 kilometers away. Gotten quite a ways away from us. It will tend to decelerate a little bit faster because it's a bigger thing. Well, let's go ahead. We're still pretty high up. Let's go ahead and speed things up a little bit. Sorry about all this wait time, but that's okay. We're learning. Okay, so pitch dark. Let's go ahead and look around. Love the beautiful sky that they have in this game. If you look around, you might even be able to see some of the planets. The Kerbal system is about, I think they said 1,000th of the size of the Earth system. So, you know, the planets are only a few hundred miles across, which causes all kinds of interesting things, but sometimes you can actually see some of the planets from even this far away. Let's check a look. Yeah, we're definitely going to be orbiting. We're going to test the heat shield, but not in the way that it was intended to be. Okay, so now we're in the upper realms of the atmosphere. You see this red effect is realistic effect. It's like a plasma effect. You can see it all the time in re-entering missions. We're moving super, super fast, but what's really good is most of our velocity is still horizontal. So we're not really getting down that closely. We're going down 1 kilometer every maybe second. Not even that fast. Most of our speed was horizontally, which gives us a lot more time to slow down. And you see we're moving much, much slower now. We're learned from the lessons of poor Valentina. Okay, we see our parachute's safe to deploy, so we're going to go ahead and deploy it. Let's slow our time warp down here before we start to get into too many issues. It's always risky doing a landing with time warp. You see our shadow here, so pretty safe. Once the parachute goes, you're moving slow enough where it's pretty safe, but always got to be a little bit cautious. I was a little worried there. It felt like we were going too fast, but that's just because I forgot to turn off the time warp. And see, that's what I get. The heat shield blew up because I had time warp on and was a little bit confused. Because Kerbal Space Program really is a simulation, that's how it works. So anyways, we've made it back. We'll go collect our science. So the goo experiments might not be that realistic, but they actually do have some experiments where they send things off into space just to see what they are. We could say it's some sort of a bacterial test and call it real. So we've achieved a small orbital mission now. We've got some science. Next time, I think we're going to try to do a little bit better of an orbital mission, and we're going to try to take a second Kerbal into space. Maybe we'll see if there's some tourism missions or something like that that we can try to take some extra people in place. See, we get some money. Every part in Kerbal can be reused. Even the Soyuz capsules, they'll try to reuse what bits of them that they can. And of course, SpaceX has been, you know, trying to use the whole rocket bodies, which they're the only people who do that right now. So, looking pretty good. Jebediah's got level 1 experience now, so he's happy. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me, and let me know what you think, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.